Hey, welcome to another Take 5. This video is going to be about functions. And for those of you familiar with functions, don't worry if you want to skip ahead, you probably can. I'm just going to talk about the blueprint functions here. So functions are things that allow you to run specific commands of execution in a more organized fashion. So if you have, let's just say, for example, I wanted to set um, a variable here, and um, then let's say we wanted to set this to 5, and then we wanted to write some text. We call this text, or just call it test for now, actually, because that's what I typed. Then we would go like this, and we'd wrap it into a function. And then anytime that you need to do that, you're going to be able to call that function, and you don't have to put the two variables on there anymore. You don't have to go this node and that node. You can just grab this function, and you can just it's going to automatically do what you tell it to do, right? Now you don't have to set these um, in the function. You can set them. You can connect them to the base node of the function, and you can actually go back out, and from there, you can now set that anytime you call that function. You can just set that right there and then say, I want to do that. So that'll kind of make it a little bit more dynamic. Every time you call it, you can do something different. So it's not going to lock it down to being a specific thing that it's setting it as. That gives you the functionality of, of changing things and letting things be called and adjusting values and that type of stuff. With functions, we've got different types. We could do we could do things like get a value and get an integer, and we could let's wrap this in a function. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this over here. This is a button called pure. If we make it a pure function, it's going to have no execution, but it's going to have a return if you tell it to have a return. So a return allows you to return something, um, but you have to connect these, right? So you could say, well, I want to know if this boolean is true, or if this integer is a specific value, and you can either use them to get them, or you can set them in here based on some other thing. So you could have this boolean being set in here based on a condition, and then you could say, oh, it's true this way, or you could have another return node that actually returns false if it's up here. And what I'm doing is Control W to duplicate. And so if you were to say, oh, this is false and this is true, now the thing is you'd have to use like a branch, right? So you would say a branch, and you could say, okay, I want to do I want to check some condition, and then on that, based on the condition, I want to go and set this boolean, and then I return the boolean state, and then you can use that outside of it for another thing. You could check another condition, or you could do something based on that. Same with any other variable, or if you're just trying to get information specifically and you just want to wrap it for organization, you can do that as well. You can get all these variables and all these different things and do stuff and do math calculations, because math is not going to allow, not going to, well, okay, so this won't do. I made a mistake here. So you can't put a branch inside of a pure function. That wouldn't work. That would have to be an executable function, but technically, what you would use the pure functions for is for getting information. So if you just wanted to do a bunch of math to this, but it didn't require setting any variables, you could do that and you could pull that information out. If it's an executable function, it's going to have an execution line, and then you could put in branches and you can put in other information, and run other functions inside of it and stuff like that. So there's also some other information here, like changing the category. These are basically settings that allow you to put it in specific categories. If you want this function to be part of like a category, or you can add some description to it. If you want it to be public, protected, or private, meaning that public is going to be accessible to other classes. Private is going to be only for this class. You wouldn't be able to call this in another location on another class. And protected would mean only children of this class can call that function. The output is the output parameters that you have. Like if we had return values, that's going to show up here. So that's basically the gist of functions right there. So I'm going to move into macros, and I'll see you guys in the next video.